All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today we've got David Khorshid from Microsoft, and he is going to be teaching us about XState. David, I'm super excited to have you on the show because I've heard about state machines for, it feels like at least a couple, is it a couple years now since you did that React Rally talk?
Yeah, it's been I think that was what, 2017? I'm wearing a React Rally shirt right now. So
Excellent. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I heard about that talk. I remember looking at some like state machine source code. I didn't have time to learn it, and then I have never since had a chance to actually figure out how these things work. So it's just been
Hmm.
like a persistent state of feeling like I'm missing out on a huge tool. So I'm hoping to correct that today.
Well, at least you're thinking in states.
Yeah, that's the hope, right?
Right.
But so yeah, we were going to look at um, last week or a couple weeks ago. Marcy Sutton and I put together this feedback widget. Let's see,
Hmm.
where is it? GitHub.com/jlangsdorf/Gatsby feedback widget. I hope I'm getting all of this right. Yeah. Okay. So we put together this feedback widget that is. Let me find. I have a link to it somewhere.
Yeah. And for
And
reference, I got this feedback widget literally this morning, basically. So
yeah, so that's
yeah,
the premise of the show, right? Is that we
yeah,
have no idea what's going on. We're going to make it up on the spot. So we built
right,
this
right.
widget that allows you to rate your experience, and so you can go in. It's keyboard navigable. You choose how you're feeling. You can add an optional comment, and then you submit it, and that is the
That
entirety.
button doesn't work.
Yeah, this button is broken, so we're gonna have to fix that. You have
Yeah,
to use the escape key now. Um,
right.
but so basically, the source of this is two files, and they get a little long because we got it working. We didn't refactor, um, but it's kind of set up now with like some pretty gnarly state, where everything is just kind of like out in the open and everything is managed very
Right.
manually. And so this seemed to me like from what we were talking about before, this seemed like an excellent candidate for being converted to a state machine because there are specific states that we can be in, specific states we should never be in, and clear actions that point between them. And if I'm understanding state machines correctly, that's exactly what this is for.
Right. Yeah. And so to get the root of the problem, you look at this and let's say that you brought a new developer onto your team, such as me, right? And let's say that I asked, what's the logic for this? Like, how's this supposed to work? Like, what does activated mean?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you go into different states? And so right now, the logic for this, like based on my cursory glance, it's sort of all over the place. No
It
offense,
it no it it, it for
but
sure
there's just
is.
like
Because you can see
lots of
down
things
here too,
happening
like we're doing
everywhere.
all this very kind of odd stuff. We're doing conditional checks. Like I'm sure that there are ways that we're getting this wrong right now.
Right. Yeah. So
Um,
what we could do is yeah, let's just think through the states and if you want to live share.
yeah, let's do it. I will. Does this one do the live share? No. What's my?
No.
Oh, I got to use
I
the other. I have two
Yeah.
profiles, and this one doesn't have it set up. So let me use this one.
Mm.
Give me just a
I'm
second.
always excited when people use live share. I was previously on the live share team at Microsoft,
Oh, cool.
and we did use state machines within live share the live share extension. Just
That
because some of the logic got complicated between like whether you're in a state of sharing a session or if you're joining a session or if you're logging in, logging out, etc.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So, all right, we've
Mhm.
got the feedback widget open. I'm going to live share it. Let me send you this link once I get it. Got it? Okay. And I'll send it to you through not that button, through the chat. here. And I'll move this off screen because while I do enjoy that everybody watches live, I've learned better than to trust y'all since you started messing with my database that one time.
That's a good call.
But
We
yeah,
don't want
so
anyone else editing in here. So
perfect. All right, so you are in, and we will be looking at the source components feedback widget folder. That's where everything happens in this thing. And
cool.
we
Yeah, I
get
see your
to the
cursor.
actual components on about line 89.
Mm-hmm. And so this is running live right now, right?
It's not running live, but I can get it running live.
All right, yeah.
Let's do it.
And so what's cool about live share too is that you could share your local server and tunnel it over to me.
Oh, for real?
So I could, yeah.
Okay, I've definitely never done that.
Yeah. It's a really cool feature of live share.
All right, so I've got, would I need to run it through the VS Code terminal for that to work?
No, not necessarily. Just
Uh-oh. All right, I've got node problems.
Hmm.
So I use NVM, and I'm pretty sure that I configured it incorrectly because when I move between terminals, half the time my node modules are like, hey, you used the wrong version of node to compile this. So someday I'll fix that, but until then I can just do a quick reinstall and everything seems to fix itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got ourselves let me check out master actually. I don't think we changed anything, but yeah, we didn't change anything. But let's
Yeah, a couple things.
let's
I'm
do
seeing
yarn
some
develop.
files pop in.
And now we should have a running feedback widget, which for now I think will be on just my browser.
Yeah, so what you could do in live share is you could just Command Shift P and share the server, but not really necessary. It's just or share. Yep, share server. So you click that one.
So I just do 8,000?
Port 8,000. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay, so that
now
I mean, I feel like that made the whole episode worth it.
yeah. So now I have the server URL copied to the clipboard, which I'm not going to share just because other people are going to. Well, actually, no. It's on my local host too, but I see your running server in my computer, so it's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
others can't see that, but just take my
Right.
word for it. Whatever Jason could see, I could see right now.
That is very slick that just works. I thought you were going to make me install like ngrok or something, and I was like, I don't know if we should do that.
No, much easier than that.
Okay.
All right, so let's get started. So first of all, I realize that a lot of viewers might not be too familiar with what a state machine is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. Getting some warnings about it being out of sync.
Oh. Do you want me to share it again?
No. We're good.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it might be because I did a git pull while we were sharing.
Yeah, probably. So, if you go to the xdate GitHub repo page, just want to show something real quick. So, David K. Piano.
Oops.
Xstate. Yeah. So there's a reason why the primary example that I have in the README is just a simple toggle. And that's because a lot of our stateful problems start with this, where we essentially have two states. It's either on or off. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, as our apps get more complex, we realize, wait, we actually have more than two states, like more than this, in this case, inactive and active. And so I think that this could be a good place to start, just taking a look at the feedback app as the widget is either open or closed.
Yeah.
But I do have one question. So what does this activated mean?
Yeah. So walking through what the code does, I believe I set up here. Yeah. So the problem is that on mount, the widget was auto-focusing because we're using refs for keyboard focus.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so by not setting the activated until the component actually mounts, that prevented the autofocus on this effect handler. So that might just be me being bad at React.
Okay. So yeah, that's a that's a weird React thing, because you actually have two states when React re-renders. You have the, okay, here's the state of, the state of the world, and then once things are rendered, then that's like a new state. So I experienced this problem when trying to focus inputs, that if you try to focus it in a use effect before it was rendered, the component doesn't exist yet, so it doesn't know what to focus. So the way I saw that, you saw that with an activated, but I just use a set timeout. But that's besides the point.
Okay.
So yeah, let's make a state machine. So in short, a state machine is it's 5 parts. So first we have a finite number of states, and so just in this case we have open and closed.
Okay.
And so we could just model it as that. There's also a finite number of events. So the user could submit the form, the user could open the form, the user could close the form. And there's transitions, basically saying, how do states get from one state to the other state based on what events just occurred?
Yeah. So we have a couple things here. We've got the feedback widget, and then we have a confirmation. I should make this like an actual. This is going to get so sloppy, and I apologize in advance. So we have the actual feedback widget, which is going to have the like open and closed, and then we have the like success screen, which also has an open and a closed. And then we like the actions that you can take are to choose, like you can choose a thing. Whoa, what is happening with my keyboard? Here we go. I guess I don't even know what you would call actions. Is you can like select a rating. You can.
Oh no.
Whoops. It's all right. It's okay.
Totally mess it up. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, we can select a rating. We can add a comment. We can submit. We can close. And I think that's it. If I look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Submit, close, add a comment, choose a rating, and then once we submit, we get. Oh, I think I have that. I was going to install Xstate, got a little bit ahead of you, and so that's not working right now. But what will happen is if I submit this, it shows us this thank you for your feedback, at which point we need to be able to close this. So really the only thing that then happens is we have events for the success, which would be to like dismiss or close or whatever we want to call that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's add 2 packages actually. So we're going to add Xstate, and then there's a package called @xstate/react, and that just gives you a hook, a use machine hook, so that you could easily just use a machine within your React component.
Okay, so I'm going to add both of these. And let's see, we're putting the computer under strain here because it's trying to stream and run NPM. So let's get it running again. Do I need to resave that or reshare that port with you?
No, it's going to still work.
Uh-oh. Why? Come on, Sharp. Knock it off. Oh, for Christ's sake. Okay. So a fun thing about Sharp is that it is a pain in my ass. So we're going to remove node modules and just reinstall. So for people who aren't familiar with Sharp, Sharp is it's a not JavaScript binary that we have to install. It's kind of like Node Sass if you've ever used it. And it's kind of finicky. Like if it gets out of sync with anything, it just breaks. And so whenever that happens, you just delete node modules and try again. And 9 times out of 10, that'll fix it. So that's what we're doing right now. So we'll wait for that to rebuild and reinstall. And let's pop into the... Oh, cool. There's a question here that says you can put programmatic focus in UseLayout effect, which I have actually never used before. So maybe that would be a way to work around the initial
all right,
focus.
so use layout effect. That's, I had a hunch that that would work. Does that mean that it's an effect that happens after layout? Because that would make the most sense.
According to Malkathos, it says it guarantees that it's been painted before it runs. And I haven't actually read the React doc, so I have no reason to doubt.
That actually makes sense.
Okay.
Of course, the React docs scare you away from using use layout effect, which is not helpful when it comes to things where you actually need to use layout, like for focusing, because that's the reason I use set timeout, is because any other use blank effects I just get scared of. So yeah,
Oh,
thanks React docs. Okay, the React docs are great. There's just
yeah,
that's my feedback. We're doing a whole feedback thing.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just disable this because I don't wanna deal with posting a bunch of stuff. And what we'll do instead is we'll just console log the payload to make sure that if we need to verify that it's working, we can. And that way, when I run this, and let's see, I can do this. I'll just submit it, and we get our mutation because I just put a GraphQL payload directly into an Axios post because I didn't want to set up a whole GraphQL library for one thing, because I have to include this in another, like it's going on the gatsbyjs.org site.
Right. Yeah.
But
all right,
that being said, we are now ready to rock. We've got a list of our states.
Yeah.
And we've got Xstate installed.
Yep. Cool. So I'm going to go to the top here, and let's start by making a really simple machine. And so this is basically going to be our simplest hello world example of using Xstate. So I guess first of all, I have to import the machine from Xstate, and you could click the pin at the top right in order to follow what I'm doing.
The pin at the top. Oh, cool. More buttons that I didn't know.
Yeah. And so this machine is going to basically define our state machine. It's just a function. You could just think of it, or it's an object or an instance of a machine with lots of functions. So it's I call it stateless, but I got ripped apart on Hacker News for calling it a stateless state machine. No idea why, but I'll show you what I mean. So let's make a const feedback machine. And so it's just a factory function, give it an idea of feedback. And that's just for debugging, visualization purposes. It's just good to identify what your machine is actually. And so if you see me on line 91.
Line 91?
Yeah. There we go. There I am. So we're going to give it an initial state of, we said that at first it's closed, right? And so right now it could be in 2 states, just for now, open and closed. And so this is going to be our simplest example. And so when we're in the closed state, when we have an open event, and that could come from anywhere, we go to the open state. And so same thing, if we're on the open state and we have a closed events, then we go to the closed state. I guess we should call this opened, just to make that unambiguous.
Yes.
So now, before we do anything, looking at this and trying to visualize the logic in our head is all fine. We could do it with pencil and paper, but I'm going to send you a link.
Okay.
statecharts.github.io. If you click that link, that links you to a visualizer. where we could copy that const feedback machine code and just paste it right in there.
Ooh, cool. All right, let me do that. Um, let's.
So you could just remove all that.
Got it.
And then there you go. And so this visualizes your logic in a pretty clear way. And so you could see like the events are going to do exactly what you say they do. So this is a prime example of a finite state machine. We have a finite number of states, open and closed, finite number of events, open or closed, and we have the transitions that go between the states, opened or closed.
Yeah. So what's really cool about this too, and like what I see as being extremely powerful is like you're showing where we start, which is this little dot here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you show actions, and we can see that like we're in the open state, so we can't open it again, and it just shows us that.
Right.
And but we can close it, and then once we close it, now we can't close it again. We can only open it. And I realize that this is extraordinarily obvious in this like small example, but I feel like this is the thing that I keep seeing, and I'm like, oh my god, I can see why this is such a powerful model, because you can visualize the logic of your app. And there was something else that you mentioned almost in passing that I thought was incredible when we were first talking about this, which was that you had said that using these state machines, there's actually the potential to automate your testing.
Yes, there is. And so I actually have an article that I'm working on coming out for that. And funny enough, the the example in the article is a feedback form with a couple more states, but yeah. If you look at your feedback form, you'll see that there's many different ways that a user could go through the feedback form. They could click pour, find, grades. They could type a comment. They might not type a comment. They could press submit. They could press close at any time. There's two different ways they could close. They could press the escape key. They could press the close button. All sorts of different ways that a user might go through those. And writing integration and end-to-end tests for each of those is pretty tedious, especially as your feedback form or any other component in your app gets more complex over time.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if the logic changes, then guess what? You have to change all those tests. And so that's why there's this thing called model-based testing, which really automates all of that.
Yeah.
But let's save the testing for
yeah, we'll sit tight and wait for the article.
yeah, exactly. So just a preview of that. So let's actually use this feedback machine in our app. So I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to import use machine, aptly named, from XState React.
Okay.
And so this is just a hook. And so it's going to look.
I think there was a typo in that. Let me.
Oh, fun. All right. So this use machine hook, let's put it over here. It's going to look a lot like your use reducer hook. So I'm just going to call it current send equals use machine, and we're going to use this feedback machine.
Okay. And send is like a dispatch in a reducer parlance.
Right, but number one with state machines and SCXML, which is the standard that XState is based on, it's send. Plus send is a lot easier to type, and I don't know why we call it dispatch. Like, it's too many letters. Send is easier. You're sending an event, right? So let's console.log current.value. So we could see what the value is every time we send an event to this machine. Now, right now, when you reload your app, you're going to see that the value is, I got that bug earlier too, is closed, which is obvious. The initial state of our machine is closed, so that totally makes sense. But let's actually add an action. And so I'm guessing the handle open handler.
Yes.
So right now we're doing set activated true, which I was a little confused about. But we could send an event, and let's send the open events. And then on handle close, let's send the close events. So very simple. All we're doing is sending events. So we're not changing states. We're not trying to do any logic. We're just our event handlers are very minimal. I want to call them stupid, but I think minimal is a nicer term, where all it does is send events
Right.
and maybe some, some housekeeping like event.prevent default.
And there it goes.
So
It's doing the thing.
yeah, so you could see that um, we do get our states, and so that works pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we could actually use that value in, I'm guessing, widget wrapper. So we have this on line 244, we have hidden equals hide widget.
Got it.
Yeah. So instead of that, we could do current dot. You could do this. You could do current dot value equals closed, and
Mm-hmm.
this is going to work just fine. And if we save that, we'll see that that works.
Yep.
Yeah. But because with XState we have state charts, and state charts are state machines, but you could have nested states, you could have parallel states. So, this might be a state like, closed foo, something else, bar, and then it
Gotcha.
becomes really hard to match against that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do all sort of JavaScript gymnastics with that.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, you could do current.matches closed. And so this is going to match, whether the string is like closed, or if it's closed something, or, whatever.
But if closed was false, it would not match.
Right. If it was open, then it would not match.
Oh,
Back.
because the state wouldn't have closed at all. Like you don't keep like a
Exactly.
Boolean value.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. All right. And then we can just go back out here and cycle it again, and it's doing what we expected.
Yeah, so totally works. And so we could almost remove that also almost forgot the handle escape key.
Yes.
So if we take a look at that, we have this handle close event. So instead of that, we could just send close. And so it's going to be the exact same thing.
Okay, so hitting the escape key, and it does what we expect. I'm not focused. There we go. Yeah, that is. I like that. That feels very easy.
Yeah. So this simplifies the logic, and so you see like the whole open close logic, all of it moved to our state machine, and so it's self-contained, over here in this feedback machine. Right now, of course, the logic is pretty simple, but it could definitely get more complex. One area of complexity I saw is this: what happens when you're in the open state? Something focuses, right?
Yes. You currently, it focuses on the. Well, it should focus on the header up here. It looks like there we go. It focuses on the header, and that's so that screen readers know that something is opened, and it'll read that header to them.
Right. So this is a prime example of, again, me as a new developer coming onto this team. Not that I'm leaving Microsoft, but just taking a look at this project with fresh eyes for the first time, wanting to know the business logic of what's supposed to happen. So I know that clicking the button is supposed to open the widget, but as far as when the widget is opened, we want the title to focus. That logic is not as clear because we sort of have to dig down, right? And we sort of have to see, okay, what's happening here? I see that we have a use effect that's sort of doing stuff. Actually, where is it?
It's all the way down on 213.
Oh, right. So it is the this use effect stuff. So reading this, it's like if hide widget equals false, then focus the widget title. So if we're trying to translate this into plain English, if the widget is not hidden, then focus the widget title. So does that mean that the widget title should always be focused?
Well,
So
right. So yeah, this is kind of it's when any of these values changes, then we know that something is up. And if the hide widget value is false, then we want to focus on the widget title. So basically when the widget becomes visible, focus on the title.
so that's a key. So you said when the widget becomes visible. Translating that, we're saying when the widget gets into
The
a
open
state
state.
of visible or opened, right? And so in with state charts, there's a very clear way of representing that. So if we go back up to our state chart over here, so on line 94.
94. The pin
I don't know why it
is
says.
struggling with me right now. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're back up at the feedback machine.
Right. So we have an on entry. These are called actions. So these differ
Okay.
from Redux actions. Redux actions are actually events.
Okay.
Where we're sending events. Actions are things that happen, like effects.
Gotcha.
So, well, just for clarity, we'll call this an effect. So this on entry, we want to focus title. And notice that I'm giving it a string. I'm not actually putting the implementation in here because this is just it's basically a glorified pure function, you know?
Okay.
And so if we go back down to the feedback widget and instead of, well, we'll log the value too, but let's also log currents.actions. And
here, gotcha.
yeah, there we go. So we're logging the value. We're also logging the actions.
Okay.
And
so let's pop this open.
Mm-hmm. So
Opens.
close.
Oh,
when we're closed, there's no actions, but when we're opened, we have an action over here. There's no implementation, which is why exec is undefined.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that we have to execute this effect, this focus title effect.
Okay.
So we can do that using, you know what, dude? Let's take a chance and let's do this use layout effect.
Okay.
Maybe that'll solve our problems. But what we could do is we could, let's see, currents.actions.for each. For each action, we could, switch on the action.type. And so, for example, if it's a, what do we call it? Focus title.
Yes.
So if we focus title, then I guess we need this
it's the
widget title and all this stuff up here. And just so we have reference to it. So if our action is to focus the title, then we could say widget title.current.focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll like prettier.
Yeah, prettier will help.
Yep. Thanks, prettier. I love prettier. Okay. And of course, always declare your dependencies. In this case, our dependency is current. And so current refers to the current state. So obviously when the current state changes, then, we want to execute those actions.
Okay.
And
so we want to probably drop this out, right?
These actions don't persist, they're per state.
Okay.
So
I'm going to just drop out the title focus from the use effect that we have now.
Yeah.
I'm also going to drop out this. Actually, we don't need to care because that is what it is. So let's jump in here and let's see. Oh, use layout effect is not defined. Let's pull it in.
Good call.
Use layout. That's the one I want. I also broke use state somehow. So let's. Okay, good. All right. Let's try that again. And now I click focusing title.
Yeah.
And did it do it? Let me.
Oh no.
All right. Okay, but it didn't focus the title.
That's weird. So maybe use layout effect isn't what we want. So my hack for this currently, until I'm sure someone will tell us a better way to do this, is just to wrap that in a set timeout so that it gives us time to render, or we could even do request animation frame. Actually, that's probably better.
Okay.
Again, if there's a better way to do this, I'm all ears. But
okay, and
with the way that
should we change
React
this to an
works,
effect then?
Yeah, this is probably just use effect.
All right, let's give that a shot and see what happens.
There you go.
Hey, there we go.
So
And
yeah,
we've got
I guess that
our
works. Just feels hacky. But the point of it is that our effects become declarative, and so we could put the implementation details later,
mm-hmm.
which is good. And so if we were to copy paste our machine into the visualizer again, which we don't have to do, but we'll see that this focus title action is now visible in the machine. And so
Yeah,
if you were
let's
to
go ahead
hand
and
it
do
off to
it
someone,
because I feel like that is a good thing to.
yeah. So, you'll see that if you click on states, the state tab at the right, you'll see that now we're in the open state and we have the focus title
Mm,
action. And
mm-hmm.
so it's a declarative representation of what's the next state and what are the next actions to execute.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so how would we handle, say the? So here's where I think things get interesting. So there are a couple things that I thought would be worth doing because one thing that I've noticed is that when we get in here, I click on this. If I click on it again, we actually probably don't want that to happen, right? Because you shouldn't be able to open again when the widget's already open. And so I don't know if like this would be one of those things where this is kind of a contrived example, but like I think you said you should make impossible states impossible.
Right. So you're saying you don't want the title to refocus again, right?
Well, we actually just like once we've clicked the open button, we probably don't want it to
Hmm.
continue trying to open because it's already.
Right. Exactly. And so right now, try just clicking that button many times. Doesn't seem like anything's happening, so that's good
Well,
because
what's
no
interesting is
state's changing.
it did it twice. So once, twice, and then it doesn't do it a third time.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so let's see. So that focusing title opened. Um so basically you're saying that you don't want side effects to, happen more than once. And when you send an event, um whether you like it or not, whether the state changes or not, React's going to say, okay, it's time to re-render.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that's just because the object references could be different or something like that, where React's diffing says like, well, it might be changed.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do a deep diff comparison and figure it out because that's expensive, but we're just going to assume the worst and say,
So it's not
yeah, we
actually
probably
trying
re-render.
anything. It's just listing this out.
Well, so for use effects, what we could do is we could there's this thing called if current or sorry, if not current dot change. So if the state didn't change, just return. And so this is an X state thing
Mm-hmm.
where, and this is actually pretty cool. So instead of doing deep object comparisons, X state determines if the state changed based on, well, when it's transitioning, it knows that if it stays in the same like open state, then it didn't change. And also,
Mm.
if there are no actions or side effects, then again, it didn't change. So this will probably solve that problem. Ah,
Well, I wonder, is it
well,
because we're
it only focused the title once. So
yeah? So it's I think it's this is actually something different where we are getting this, and then when we click it again, it's running the check, but it's not like performing any actions. So it's
yes,
maybe just because
exactly.
we're logging like without any logic.
Yeah. So again, React's going to be pretty overzealous about re-rendering,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's not sure whether things have actually changed or not.
Okay. So
So
then
that's what that current dot changed is. It's an optimization that you could use if the state has really changed.
sure. So then
Yeah.
another question would be, like with this, we're currently using use state to manage the value of these. Do we
Okay.
want that in the state machine, or in this particular example, like with a form, do you still just want kind of like a local state for form inputs?
So that's up to you with X state, which pretty much acts like a glorified use reducer.
Mm-hmm.
You could definitely put that all in there. You could refactor it like slice of state per slice of state, or you could just like go wholesale, just use reducer for everything, or well, use xstate for everything. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I guess we could, let's see, I guess it's that set rating.
Mm-hmm.
And so handle change set rating. All right, so this gets into another fun topic with xstate, where a lot of people, and this was early on, like after I presented at React's rally, a lot of people said that they want to represent their state as, of course, finite states like open, loading, closed, submitted, failure, all those, what I call discrete states. But
Mm-hmm.
they also have what's called like non-discrete or continuous states that they want to represent too. So, for example, if they fill the feedback form, there's an infinite number of possibilities like what someone could put in that feedback form.
Right.
So that introduces the idea of context, or in David Harrell, who created state charts, his original formalism, he calls it extended states. So state that goes beyond the finite state. So if we go to our feedback machine on line 33 again, let's just have a rating. Is there any rating selected by default?
Yeah, the rating by default is 2.
Okay. That's
I think.
Optimistic.
Let's see. Well, I think it's
so.
like 1, 2, or 3 are the ratings. Yeah, so it's we choose right in the middle by default.
Right. All right. So so we have this rating of 2, and so we want only in the open state, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want let's say let's call this action rate.
Okay.
So when the user performs a rate action, they want to stay in the open state, of course, but so we're not going to assign a target. So this target, this is shorthand. So this closed is a shorthand for target closed. But over here, we're just going to admit that because we're staying in the same state.
Uh-huh.
And so instead, we're going to perform an action. And so I'm going to import assign from xstate and actions. So this is going to feel very much like set state or use state. So we're going to assign rating, and we get a function with 2 arguments, the context and the event, but we're just going to use the events in this case. And so the event is going to be, or let's just do e.value. Just make it simple. Yeah, so we don't need to use that context.
Perfect. And so for people who aren't familiar with this, the underscore is just like a linting shorthand to keep it from complaining that we didn't use that variable.
Mm-hmm. So if we go to handle change on line 175.
Okay.
Then I'll keep this for now, just to illustrate. But we could, of course, again send an event, and so it's going to be type rate, and the value is going to be events.target.value.
Gotcha.
And then now I'm going to log on line 143 currents.context.
Okay.
So this is our finite state. This is our extended state. And this is our side effects or actions.
Okay. So let's save that. Let's jump out here. And we've got a rating of 2. So let me jump in, and I'm going to change that rating. Rating is now 3. Rating is now 1.
I guess that should be a number. But I guess
you have to like explicitly cast it because of the way that, I guess because of the way React is pulling the value of things, because we do set it as a number. But yeah, so we can go change that actually real quick. Let's do number. Oops.
Oh, I'm lazy. I just put a plus sign in front.
Oh, yeah, that's actually I mean that is kind of a good, like, we can just drop that in here and that'll turn it into a number. So let's do that. There we go. And we've got numbers.
And so, yeah, and just in terms of refactoring, if we go to line 172, we see where that set rating is and this rating. So we could even comment this out, and then we could just say const rating equals currents dot context dot rating. We could even do this if we want to get fancy. But this pisses people off who are not familiar with that syntax. But whatever.
Yeah, and I think what we'll actually be able to do, because ultimately the way that we're going to run this is down on 197. This is where we use that state. And so we would be able to almost like just destructure it down here. At least I think so. Let me make sure we're not using it anywhere else.
Yeah, so now this set
we
rating
do use it in a few other places.
Is nowhere. And so what's good about this is instead of having like just a separate state for set rating, now you could use the state machine to apply just logic to to this. So for example, let's say that you don't want to allow them to change the rating for some reason. I don't know. That there's basically, instead of directly manipulating state, you send an event that says, I would like to change the rating. And based on the logic here, you would change the rating. So over here, we make it absolutely impossible to change the rating if we're in any other state besides opened or closed. Now, of course, in the UI, I guess that's impossible anyway, just because those rating elements are hidden. But if I were to bet you $100, like say, can you guarantee me that it's impossible for the user to make a rating without it being open? Then you might take that bet, but with more complex applications, that might not be the case.
For sure.
Because as the logic stands before the state machine, a rating could happen in any state. And the only guarantee, or the only like safeguard you have against ratings happening in any state, like closed or submitting, is that they're not visible in the UI, which is a very a very shaky assumption.
Yeah.
So,
well, cool. So, I mean, this is super handy, and we'll be able to go in here and refactor to also include. Whoops. Let's go to add the comment, and then for things like. Let's see, what else? Oh, so the other thing that we would want to handle is the transition state between the feedback widget when it gets submitted, then opens the success screen. And
yeah, so let's do that.
Yeah, that would be a good one, I think.
So, so if we go back in our state machine, I added the success state. And so now we're thinking through what events causes opens to transition to success. Probably submit, right? And so right now we're assuming that it just is instantaneous, so that there's no loading. So all right, so and so this is actually a good use case for now that we have 3 states. This widget wrapper. Oh wait, we're good anyway, because current match, like, it's only hidden if current match is closed, so it's not going to matter. But let's go ahead and let's see, where's our success screen?
That is, here we go. Yeah. You're down on.
Yeah.
Let's see, what line is it? Down on line 331.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why the pin isn't working, but so here's another interesting thing that I see in a lot of apps. So we have 2 widget wrappers side by side. We have the success one, and then we have the question one. So if I asked you, can both of these be showing at the same time? The answer is probably going to be no, of course not. Right. Like, why would we show success? But then if I ask you, how can you guarantee that? Or how do you know? There's a lot of juggling going on. Like over here, is submitted equals false. And then over here, well, it was something else. It was
Like is
hide
visible
widget
or
or
hide widget
something.
or yeah.
Yeah. So my question would be like, what if hide widget was false and is submitted is false at the same time? And then you might tell me like, oh well, that doesn't happen. But then I ask you like, can you
We
guarantee that
actively
doesn't happen?
ran into that while we were live coding this. So
Right.
yeah, this was something that definitely hit us.
Yeah. So let's do. I mean, just for now, yeah, we could do this. We could do currents dot matches success, because we could be in 3 states now. We could either be in open, success, or closed. And so if it matches closed, then it doesn't match success, obviously.
Right.
So and so let's see, how do we submit it? So we have this submit button. And so I'm guessing like
There's a handle submit function in here.
right, there's that handle submit function, which does a few things. So let's see, that logs the payload. So let's send a submit. In fact, like if we were actually sending data, we would just send type submit and just like the payload.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, I would like to move to doing that. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and leave that in, and we probably won't have time to fully refactor this, but I'll finish it up later.
Yeah. So right now, let's go back to the app and see if it works.
Okay. We are
Fingers
in the
crossed.
app. And let's see where.
Oh, wait, sorry. This widget wrapper, it's hidden if it does. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's that hidden logic. So usually for conditionally displaying certain panels, I would do something like a switch statement, or not. Yeah, or ternary or something like that.
That's what we should have done. We were trying to do this in. I think we built this in about like 2.5 hours. So it was very much like let's see how far we can get. Okay, so we've got this. We can rate our experience. We're doing great. And let's submit it. And now we've got the success did show up, but we didn't lose the open state or something.
And so this is where, this is a great bug to see. Like as weird as that sounds. So let's real quick refactor this into not a switch statement, just because I really wish that JavaScript had those do statements. But instead, let's do this. So basically, if
where are you at right now?
False here. So I'm on line 288.
288. Got
and
it.
So so this hidden stuff, we're just going to assume that, if it exists, it's visible. If it doesn't exist, it's hidden. So this doesn't really matter.
So we can drop it all together then.
So if current matches open, then show this.
Okay.
Otherwise, if current matches success, show this. And of course, we don't need this hidden anymore. And hopefully that doesn't break anything. Otherwise, let's just show null no, we want to show this button.
Well, the button should still be visible.
Oh, we always want to show that button. All right, yeah. So this logic should be fine. Prettier is going to do its thing. Just to explain to everyone what I did, I refactored this to a ternary statement.
Oops.
Cannot focus. No. Oh, fun.
Okay, so let's look at what went wrong here. We have current matches open, and the problem would appear to be that it is trying to focus.
Oh. It should be opened.
Yes.
We ran into that before. So now things should work just fine.
Got it.
Opened. We press submit.
Let's submit it.
And we
are
have
in the right state. If we fix this button, that would work, but I'll use escape instead. Our escape button no longer works.
So
we don't have like a dismiss action.
All right, so this close button, right now this close button does nothing.
Yeah,
okay. So the logic, this would be an example of faulty logic, is that on close, like if we go back to the state machine on line 101,
Yes.
that, and this is sort of a feature slash, it's not really a bug, it's just a lack of specification. But let's say that someone says, we want the user to be able to close the feedback machine no matter which form they're on or which state they're on.
Mm-hmm.
So we could have we could basically just handle this on the entire machine. So on line 117, I'm just going to add that close. And so
Okay.
the way that nested states work is if a nested state doesn't handle an event, this is just sort of like event propagation. If this doesn't handle an event, then it goes up to the parents and it
So
asks the parents, can you handle the events?
so it's going to look here first, and if it
Yes,
doesn't find anything, then it'll look here, and then if it doesn't
yes.
find anything, it's broken.
Then it doesn't do anything.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
now we should see that it indeed works if you go back to the app.
And we have. Oh, did you already add the handler?
I'm about to.
Okay, so we are just adding an on-click handler that will send close, and save that.
Yeah.
Let's get out here and try it again. So we're going to submit and dismiss. All right.
There we
so
go.
Let's do that one more time. Let's use the escape key this time, and it does exactly what we want. So that is fantastic.
Yep. And then you could visualize this all. You're going to see that it's a little bit more complex now, but it's good because anyone could just look at the visualizer and be able to see the complex logic that we're trying to represent.
Okay, so let's update. We're going to get here. And so the close action can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
It looks like that's always available. We can always call it, and it would just like do nothing if it's already closed. If we open, then we're able to rate, which is really, that's okay. So we can see what's going on here.
Yeah.
And then the rate that's showing us the X data sign is how we would update.
And
the
you could
context.
actually send the custom events bottom right. So if you put like 3 there.
In the, well, wouldn't I have to call it like,
right there.
Would I call it rate?
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So type rate and then
the
value 3. Then you're going to see that the context does get updated and it stays on the open state.
Cool. Okay. And then if I submit it and I try to submit my custom value, let's change it. Nothing happens because we're not in that state.
Right.
That is, it's pretty powerful stuff.
And then you could close from,
and then we
anywhere.
close from out here. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. So I feel like we've covered quite a bit here. Are there any other kind of edge cases or features that we should look at in like we've got a couple questions actually. So Light Sam, it looks like joined a little bit late. We are building a feedback widget. So the feedback widget was built. We're refactoring it to use XState. And then there is another question. Could we use React Automata's state tags to handle when the widget wrappers should be visible or not?
So React Automata uses XState version 3. I don't think it was updated to the last version yet, but
okay.
Honestly, when React hooks came out, it made things so much easier. So it's easy enough to just pop in a hook, like a use machine hook, and then use that state, just like you would use a reducer, like use reducer.
Okay. So so we would do it kind of here, like something like this. And then one more question, or I guess a request from Ismint Berry. Parallel state, please. And I don't even know what that means, so I hope you do.
I do, but that's like sort of an advanced, or not advanced, it's just a deeper topic on its own. And thankfully in our feedback widget, we don't really have parallel states. But
could you maybe just give a quick overview of what that actually means?
Yeah, sure. So let's imagine that we are making an example widget of where we're showing like a bold, italic, or underline, like you could pick between any of those 3, right? Okay. And so each one of those buttons exists in its own parallel states. So bold could be on or off, italic could be on or off, underline could be on or off. And instead of instead of creating like 8 different states where it's like bold italic or bold underline, italic underline, etc., we could just represent those as just their own orthogonal regions or parallel uh, states. And so in that case, the state value is going to look something like, I'll just put it over here, is going to look like bold, active, underline, inactive, italics, active. And so that's why I like this object notation, because it represents that we're in each of these 3 states at the same time, and each state has its own state.
And so how would you use the current dot matches with this? Because it would always match bold.
Right, but you would do something like current dot matches bold active, and so that would be true for that.
Gotcha. Perfect. Yeah. Well, cool. All right. If anybody wants to ask questions, now is the time, because we're nearing the end. David, is there anything else that you want to kind of show off or dig into here?
Well, I just released X8 version 4.4, which includes a lot more features, such as dynamic times. In fact, if you reload the visualizer, because it doesn't really, save your stuff, I have one example over there that highlights a few more features. So if you click fetch over here, there's a timeout, and you see that timeout where it goes to rejected. So reset the machine and then click resolve real quick. Well, so you see that timeout is automatically canceled, and now we're in the fulfilled state. Yeah. And we're in a nested state too. So we're in fulfilled first, and you could just imagine that being a screen. And so the code for that is pretty straightforward. It's after timeout rejected, and you define timeout at the bottom. So we have timeout, and then at the bottom, we just, like, these are all implementation details, which means that the above machine, like everything above, like, in the first argument, all of this stuff can be converted to JSON. And this business logic or application logic can be reused whether you're using Vue, Angular, React, Backbone, I don't know, no framework, or even if you're trying to transport this between different languages. And that's why I find state machines so powerful, is that you could declaratively represent your application logic without tying yourself to implementation details of which framework you're in.
Yeah. This seems like super powerful stuff. I think I'll have to actually play with this a little bit to keep my brain from bubbling out my ears here. But this looks really cool, and I'm really into this whole idea of like being able to do cool things. So this would be like if you, for example, were to make a request to an API that doesn't always resolve. You could just say like, hey, if this fails, we're bounce to this state, but if it succeeds, then take us to the success screen.
Right.
Okay, that's super cool. And then there's one more question in the chat, which is, how soon can we expect that XState and automated testing article?
This week or next week, hopefully. So I have a draft, and if you are extremely curious, just hit me up on Twitter and I'll share the draft with you.
Awesome. And people can find you on Twitter at David K. Piano. Whoops, piano, if I can spell. You should definitely go follow David. He is extremely smart and very chock full of good insights into just, things like state machines and lots of things that aren't state machines that are also smart. So, where else should people look for you? Is there anywhere else that people should follow you?
Well, we do have a community at spectrum.chat/state charts, where I think Max Stoiber and others made the spectrum.chat community, which is really great and a great way of sharing information. And so there's definitely a lot of talk in here, just people trying to use state charts in their Vue, React, or other applications, whether they're using XState or something else. So it's a good place to talk shop.
Yeah. That is super useful. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching. We are doing I think next week we're off. I'm going to be at JS Heroes. This is not the pet channel I wanted to bring up. We are, I'm at JS Heroes next week, so there will be no live stream. But on the 18th, we're going to have Marcy Sutton back on, and we're going to do an accessibility deep dive, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. So please hit that follow button and check this out. It'll be posted on YouTube once I have the ability to export it. And hit us up on Twitter, both David and myself. We would love to talk to you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.